How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks and we focus on one thing. Always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about Twitter. It had quite the run inside of the market. We were talking about this inside of the Discord, and they were saying, yo, Dre, you need to do a video on this play. Did you see how much it ran up? So you know what? We'll talk about it further in this video. I won't waste any more time. Let's jump into the agenda. If you're new to this channel, I just want to let you know we have timestamps down below inside the description. But if you're a shareholder or you're thinking about taking a position, I highly suggest you watch this full entire video. So the first thing we're going to go over is a technical analysis. We're going to be taking a look at the overall price action. We want to know support. We want to know resistance. We want to know what it looks like in the bearish case scenario and as well as in the bullish case scenario. And then we're going to be going on Fintel, taking a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information. The reason why this is important because it does have an impact on the way the stock performs. And then we're going to be taking a look at the order flow distribution. We want to know the buying and the selling behavior on the retail side and as well as on the institutional side. And then when all of that is done, we'll be going into the final thoughts and as well as some more details. So let's get to it. So we're going to do a technical analysis for Twitter. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $49.97, being up 27.12%. On the low, it tested $46.86, and then on the high, testing $51.37. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 266.208 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 39.467 million shares. So we had well above the average in regards to volume, and that's why we saw a lot of strength in the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, you can see from the RSI down below, it is at 79.93. And then when we take a look at our moving averages here on the chart, we are above the 50-day, we're above the 21-day EMA, we're also above the 100-day, but we are just below the 200-day moving average, where it's at $52.08. And the reason why we want to bring this area of significance, there is a strong possibility this stock could see that level going into tomorrow due to the fact we do have some buying that is happening inside of the after hours and just more continued momentum and attention around the stock. As far as for the downside is concerned, you can see we have a big time gap up, and in order to fill in this gap, it'd have to come back down here to $39.88, roughly in that range. So taking that into consideration, if price action breaks below 46.86, this is where we could see it fall. So I want to make sure that you are fully aware of this. I think this is very important to bring to your attention. So if you are going to be swinging it, this will help you with your risk management and so forth. If we are able to go into the open, and let's say if we have a pullback going to 48 and we could hold support there, then don't be shocked if you see Twitter making a move to the 200-day moving average, which is around 52.08. And I'll be very curious to see if buyers would step in, because if they did step in, then we could see Twitter making a move going to $56. So you want to keep a very close eye on this play and make sure you have a strategy. But for my long-term investors, I would not be buying at the current levels of where it's at right now. So let's go on to the short interest information. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for Twitter. As we scroll down further on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for Twitter. As we scroll down further on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So the first thing I want to bring to your attention, you can see Elon Musk as of April the 4th having an ownership of just over 73.48 million shares with a stake of 9.20%, and which is the leading stake out of amongst the other ones as far as Vanguard, Morgan Stanley, and BlackRock. Again, this is part of the reasons why we saw the pump. Now, when we take a look at the recent filings, we have Dixon Hughes Goodman Wealth Advisors LLC for April the 4th that purchased 100 shares. And keep in mind, this is not the date that they purchased these shares. And then we also have Strengthening Families and Communities LLC that purchased 463 shares. So those are the new filings, and then everything else is from March 31st and so forth. And then when we take a look at the short interest, The off-exchange short volume ratio is at 38.13%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 1.43 million shares. Scrolling down further on the page, the short shares availability is at 10 million, updated 20 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 0.25%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 31st, it was at 44.41, and then for the close of the first being at 38.13. So what this shows us, even though it does fulfill the criteria of having a short volume over 21%, we have to take into consideration as far as for the short interest and the float, it is at 5%, and as far as for the amount of shares that are available to short, it is at 10 million. So again, not short squeeze potential whatsoever, but it's still a play you want to keep an eye on because there can be some further upside. Now let's go on to the order flow distribution. Now let's take a look at the order flow distribution for Twitter. So we see on the inflow, it is at 2.39 billion, and then on the outflow, it's at 2.43 billion. Again, mostly we talk about millions. These are billions. Now let's jump into it. So breaking down the category, on the large, it was 0.05 billion. On the medium, it was 1.91 billion, and on the small, it was 0.43 billion. Taking a look at the outflow side, on the large, it was 0.02 billion. On the medium, it was 2 billion, and then on the small, it was 0.41 billion. And then taking a look at the large scale orders in the last 5 days, you could see for today, April the 4th, it was an inflow of 22.28 million. And on the first, it was at 3.73 million. Analyzing the numbers even further for the small scale orders that tend to represent the retail side, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at what happened on the medium, we had more selling than we had buying. And then when we take a look at the large, it represents whales, institutions, and funds, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at the turnover ratio, it was at 33.39%. So that is very high for a stock like Twitter. And the main reason being is, this is the type of play where it doesn't see heavy volume. The reason why I saw heavy volume today was due to the catalyst with Elon Musk. So that's why you want to keep a very close eye to see how this volume continues as this week progresses. Because the moment that volume starts dying down, you guys already know what could happen to the stock. I'll talk about it inside of the final thoughts, so let's get into it right now. So for my final thoughts for Twitter, before we get started, let's talk about why the shares ran up today. So let's go over it. So shares of Twitter jumped 25% in pre-market trading after a Securities and Exchange Commission filing showed that Elon Musk, the chief executive of Tesla, taken a 9.2% stake in the microblogging service. Last week, Musk said he was giving serious thought to creating a new social media platform as he was upset by Twitter's free speech approach. So this is very interesting, and of course this contributed to the momentum that we saw in the stock. So the next question is, so Dre, what are your thoughts on it? What does the price action look like? So going into tomorrow, I'd be very interested to see if Twitter can get to $52. The moment it can get to $52 and gain more momentum, because that's right where we have the 200-day moving average, it can move up even further. So that's why I say add that to your homework. But one thing we have to understand, there's a big time gap up that we had. So knowing that, as far as where the gap is to the downside, it is around $39.88. So if you're going to be trading this play to the upside, I would make sure that you're using the right risk management, having a stop loss in place. And another point that I want to bring up, this stock is mainly owned by institutions. It adds up to almost 80%. It's around 79%. So for this stock price to push up even further, institutions have to continue to be loading up on shares. And that is what we saw from the order flow distribution. Of course, retail traders and investors have been getting involved as well, but I just want to make sure you have a strategy, because the moment they dump, you want to make sure that you can protect yourself. Also, when we went on Fintel, taking a look at the recent institutional ownership, we could see that institutions have been loading up on shares. Twitter is a well-known name out there. Also, when we took a look at the short interest information, I'm not going to say that it has short squeeze potential due to the fact that there's a lot of short shares available. I think it was around 10 million. But we also have to understand the fact, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of shorts that probably got into this play
for today. So that's why I want to say keep an eye on this play very closely. And as far as for the low of the day, which was around 46.86, the moment you have price action break below that level, that is where we can see this stock pay out big time if you're a trader that's looking to play puts or you want to short the stock. Again, taking advantage of that downside movement. And if you're a long-term investor, I would sit down and be patient. And the main reason being is Twitter needs to prove that they can show consistent profitability. That is number one. Also, number two, there's a lot of hype surrounded around this stock. It's pretty much looking like it's going to be a pump and dump. So the last thing that you want to do is buy in at 50 bucks and then have this stock pull all the way back going to 40 or around 39. Of course, I can't give out financial advice, but that is just one thing that you want to be aware of. When you have a stock run up as much as Twitter did on the day, you have to be cautious. So just sit around and wait to see what happens. It will save you a lot of money, plus you can get the stock at a way better price. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be talking real soon.